You cannot deny that there's been tons of improvements to The Sims 4 build mode since its release in 2014, from launching without pools to adding terrain tools and free updates every so often. It's miles away from this. Since recording footage for my 2014 versus 2024 Sims 4 video, I've wanted to try something out. I wanted to build something in The Sims 4 with the most recent version of it, with whatever packs I currently own, and then recreate it in The Sims 4 from 2014, the bare bones version of this game. So, let's see how it went. But first, if you're interested in discounted games like maybe Sims 4 Life and Death, then look no further than Instant Gaming. This is the one-stop shop for everything from PC, Xbox, PlayStation, and Nintendo games, all for really cheap. So go ahead and treat yourself by checking out the Instant Gaming link in the video description. Before we get into the actual building, I wanted to point out some UI differences. For some reason, they rotated how this lot looked on the map, which does anyone else find strange? Like, I wonder why that decision was made. Probably so that the front of the lot was forward facing, so you know what? Good decision. Good choice. This looking like this was unexpected to me. I'm not sure when this changed, but I'm sure glad it did. I was convinced that I messed up my foundation and wasn't able to lower it since the drag option wasn't on the building when I clicked it. Then I remembered there was a slider for it in the foundation menu, way back when, and yeah, this is how it worked, which is not that great. I much prefer the hidden slider on the building. When placing rooms, I automatically held shift to quickly duplicate it and felt blindsided that that wasn't a thing. Neither was the straight up copy button on a room. Like, I knew this going into this, and that still didn't change the surprise in the moment. The roof tool felt incomplete. For some reason, I could adjust this portion, but not the sides. Weird. It made it so that situations like this happened. I think it looks really ugly when compared to the seamless version from 2024. And I had to make sure everything matched without duplicating the roofs. Ugh. Roofing sucks, okay? Especially when you can't duplicate things. The church tower was shorter since I couldn't build that fourth and last floor. On top of that, or should I say what's not on top of that, you get it, would be the proper finished fence. Of course, we don't have this nifty cool fence, but I was expecting to be able to use something. Nah-uh. The game had other plans. I couldn't put fences here, here, or here. Ugh. I know exactly what I'm doing here with some of the choices I made. I've gone out of my way to make it so some of these creative decisions couldn't be redone in the 2014 version. Like the pond, the terrain being higher here, this tower, stacking these windows, moving the windows ever so slightly off the grid, and adding the ladder in the tower. I wasn't thinking though. I could have created a custom staircase and made two buildings with different foundation heights, but alas, like I said, I wasn't thinking. Is it fair that I've done it like this? I don't care. I think the point of this video is to see the difference, and we wouldn't be able to see the difference if I didn't go out of my way to showcase it. So here it is, all of the differences. It's easy to forget how limiting building was back in 2014. Even things like doors. There's not a good door option for a medieval looking church wedding venue. In 2024, even if you didn't own the castle kit, there are good options for that sort of thing. Like, there are a few doors that could work. Then, the doors that I did have access to didn't fit the space allocated to the doorway. I couldn't even place them off the grid since that ability wasn't a thing back then. I don't even want to talk about the front windows. They're simply awful, okay? No further comment needed. Half walls didn't exist. That's why we ended up with this situation. At least I could put walls there. I couldn't actually add this portion to the building. It just wasn't letting me do it. When finishing up the inside, I was surprised that you couldn't place fences inside the buildings. So that meant the altar looked like this. I mean, it's okay, but it just feels incomplete in my mind. I don't know. What do you think? Here's a small complaint. I couldn't match terrain paint with a tile. That meant the entire outside portion of this wedding venue ended up being very rigid and square. I quite liked the original design, which was more free-flowing and curved in sections. Plus, I was able to mix the terrain paint with gravel and dirt to make the transition from walkway to garden bed a bit more seamless. For decorating, there were a lot of small things that frustrated me. One of the first things I noticed when I began to decorate was how limiting decorating felt in 2014. Back then, there was limited swatches for certain base game items. Throughout the years, there have been updates to include additional swatches, but here I felt restricted because there wasn't all of those swatches that I got used to, that I've grown accustomed to. This meant that I often felt like I had to compromise on my design choices and the colors that I use here. What really frustrated me though was the inability to freely place objects without snapping to the grid system. Even just trying to place clutter or create a more lived-in feel felt like a chore because the level of detail and freedom we've grown accustomed to just wasn't there. This was especially apparent when doing the gardens. I ended up just spamming the plants until they were in locations where I could actually place them. In all honesty, the gardens in 2014, in my opinion, look way worse than 2024 version, and it's partially because I was just sick of it. I was tired. Done with the build. Yeah, like I said, the placement restrictions were incredibly irritating. In the 2014 version, objects would refuse to go where I wanted them simply because they were interacting with walls, fences, or even other objects. It felt so clunky compared to the smooth build mode of 2024, where we've gotten more freedom to place items precisely, thanks to features like the Alt key for fine-tuning placement, which actually surprisingly was always part of the game, but back in 2014 we were just more limited on where things can go in relation to other items. In the 2014 version, you'd often be forced to compromise your vision just because the game didn't allow for the same flexibility, making building feel far more rigid than it does today. Another annoying thing was that the career reward items were locked even when building without a household. I wasn't expecting this, and it wasn't like I had some really cool ideas for integrating certain career-specific objects into my build, but it was still frustrating to me. In the 2024 version, we have cheats or options to bypass those restrictions if we wanted to focus solely on building, but in 2014, you had to grind through careers just to access certain decor or furniture, which really limited creative expression. Like I said, I didn't really plan to use any of it, but still, just the fact that I couldn't use it irritated me. Lastly, one of the strangest limitations were not being able to size objects up or down. I mean, this is a classic when you think back to, 2014 version of the game. In my mind, at least, it's a classic staple, like, oh yeah, this wasn't a thing that I could do. It's still kind of strange though. It's almost funny looking back now because resizing items has become such a staple in modern builds, allowing us to create unique decor by adjusting the scale of items. Whether it's making a tiny plant larger to fill a corner, or shrinking a light to better fit the space, or, sizing up or down rocks to make it look more diverse in the garden, it just wasn't possible back in 2014. This lack of control made it hard to add personal touches or achieve the perfect balance in certain locations, like in the gardens. And I missed that freedom while building. I found that it was overall harder to build in the 2014 version of the game. There were some moments where I either had to leave whatever it was I did originally, or delete it and mess around to get it to look exactly like how I wanted it to. And that's why things like this double wall happened. I just didn't think it was worth the hassle of deleting it and redoing it, since I couldn't simply expand the room like how I was used to. So I just left it. It's safe to say I hated building in 2014. I hated how it worked, I hated the limitations, and I hated the way things looked. It was a negative 10 out of 10 experience. I'm not doing this again, and I'm not envious of people from 2014. I would never willingly time travel back to 2014 to play The Sims 4, that's for sure. Well, it's been a pleasure building. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I know it's a little bit different than what I normally do, so let me know if you liked it. And until next time, stay happy, healthy, and hydrated. Bye!